In this video, we will show you how to replace your door lock actuator on this Lincoln Navigator. This will be located behind your inside door panel. Let's get into it. All right, friends, let's get started by removing our door panel from the door. Now on this, you're going to find that you have a handle. On each side of the handle, you're going to have a plastic cover. Remove the cover, and underneath that, you'll find a little screw. To remove this, you can either use a trim tool or a small pick. We just want to pop this right out of place. We'll give that a quick inspection, make sure it is still reusable, and set it aside. Use an 8mm to remove the mounting screw. Inspect your hardware, replace it as necessary. Now let's move down to where our inside door handle is. You'll find that you have a little trim panel that you can remove. For this, I'll use an angled pick, pull on that handle, and make my way in between this area. Gently separate that. Once you have that separated, we're going to try to push this inside of the door panel. Now we can take hold of that door panel and carefully grab onto it. We're going to start lifting it up and pulling it away. There's three things that we want to pay attention to. You're going to have to make sure that the inside door handle makes its way through this hole. You have a window switch, which is going to have wiring leading to the back side there. And then up just a little bit higher than that, you also have your door lock knob. Now with all that said, let's take hold of this and remove it from the door. Now that we have the door panel off of the door, continue on to the window wiring. Where my thumb is, there's a little tab that you can squeeze in to unlock this, give it a little wiggle, and pull it down and off. Every time you disconnect an electrical connector, take a peek. If you see any funny colors, it's probably corrosion, and that would need to be dealt with. This looks fine, so I'll set it aside. Remove the door panel, set that aside as well. Now with that out of the way, let's continue on to removing our inside door handle rod. For this, you can use a pick or small screwdriver, come underneath this yellow tab, and pop it free. After that, go ahead and lift up on that rod. Once you have that separated, we're going to continue on to this 8mm headed bolt, so we can remove the inside door handle. Give that a quick inspection, set it aside. Continue on to removing this 8mm headed bolt. Take hold of this, give it a little wiggle, remove it from the door. We'll have a quick look at the back side of this. Looking at this, you can tell it has a hook that protrudes out. That slides into this area of the door. Now we'll continue on by removing the speaker assembly from the area. You'll find that you have 4 1/4-inch headed screws that make their way around this, holding it to the door. Let's remove all 4. There's one directly under that. Back up top here. And one directly under that one. Take hold of this, give it a little wiggle, remove it from the door. Keep in mind there is wiring attached to the back. Looking along the back side of the speaker, there's a locking tab where my index finger is. Squeeze it in, remove the wiring harness. Quick inspection for corrosion. Set the speaker aside. Carefully remove your vapor barrier from the door. Set that aside. Now that we have the vapor barrier out of the way, let's have a look down in this area. As you can see, we have wiring leading to the bottom of the door lock actuator. For this, there should be a little tab that you can get underneath with either a small pick or a small screwdriver, gently pry it away, and push it off of the actuator. Ours looks as though it's already broken, but generally you can just get underneath that, move it just enough so you can slide it off. With that disconnected, it's a good idea to just give it a quick inspection for corrosion. Assuming it looks okay, just go ahead and set that aside. Now we can continue on back at the actuator. You'll find that this is held in place with two ears on either side of a bracket. To remove the actuator from the bracket, you can use a small screwdriver or prying device and gently pry it away from the actuator. With that pulled away, I'll pull this out of position and do the same on the opposite side. There we are. Now we have that freed up. Now let's have a quick look at the actuator itself. Looking where the boot connects onto the metal rod, you're going to find a plastic area in between. The reason why I'm pointing this out is because we're going to want to try to cut this as close to the rod as possible. Once we have it cut, we'll pivot the rod out of the latch. Now we'll use some side cutters along here. Now we can remove the actuator body. Set that aside. Now we can take hold of what's left of that rod. We're going to pivot towards the outside of the door and then pull the hook out of the outside door latch. Remove that as well. All right, now we can get ready to install our brand new door lock actuator. You'll find with your kit, it came with several of these rods. Find the rod that matches up perfectly with your original actuator. Once you've done that, you're going to want to pay attention to this curved area. That needs to fit into the very end of the actuator here. Looking at this, you can tell that you have two ears for it to fit around. You would just take this and slide it into place. Once you have it in the proper placement, continue pressing it in to lock it in position. But don't do that yet, because we're going to install the rod first. Let's take the rod and put it inside the door to the door latch. Now let's install that actuator up on here. We're going to align the rod with the end of the actuator and slide it into place in between those two locking ears. We'll get this squeezed in. There we are. Double check to make sure it's completely secured in place. Now let's take that actuator and put it in position. Have a look at the two tabs here. Those are the two tabs that need to fit into the corresponding holes on the bracket. We'll take this and bring it down from one side, coming in at an angle, trying to push in that rearward tab first. Once you've done that, continue on with a small prying device and get in between the bracket and the actuator and gently separate it, just enough to slide it into position. Double check to make sure it's locked in properly. Let's continue on to our electrical connector. We'll take this and slide it into position. Once you have that slid up there, double check to make sure it's completely secure. Now, before we put anything else back together, let's test its functionality. Make sure you end in the unlocked position. Let's have a close look at each of these rods. You want to make sure you have the inside door handle rod outside of the door. Continue on to paying attention to this area. You have a small bracket for this rod to sit onto. We'll bring it up and over and then latch it into position. There we are. Make sure that that can still move around. You don't want this kinked, otherwise the door lock will not work properly. Now it's time to install our vapor barrier. For this, you want to make sure that you take the rod and slide it through the corresponding hole. Now we'll bring this up into its original position and press it into place. As you're going, it's important to make sure you align all of these holes. That's where the door panel goes onto. With that in place, we'll continue on to installing the speaker. Reconnect your wiring harness. Press it in, listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure that's secure. Let's bring this up into position. Once it's properly aligned, it should sit flush against the door. Continue on to installing all 4 of your mounting screws. Once they're started, snug them up. Let's get ready to install our inside door handle bracket. Have a quick look at the backside. You'll find that you have that hooked area that fits directly into the slot in the door. We'll slide this into position and align our rod. Now before we latch that rod in, let's continue on to aligning our mounting bolt hole, making sure that we do have the hook slid into position in the door. If it's not, this won't sit still. Start in that mounting bolt and snug it up. Make sure that's secured to the door. Continue on back to your rod. With it in its resting position, go ahead and slide it straight down, press it into the clip, and lock it down. Install your inside door handle. You want to make sure you don't have too much of that mounting bolt sticking out of the backside of the handle. We'll get this into position and start in the mounting bolt. Test the functionality. Now it's time to install our door panel. Have a look at the backside. You'll find that you have several hooks that make their way all the way around the door panel. Each of those hooks needs to fit into their corresponding hole on the door itself. Before we put this into place, reconnect your window switch. Listen for a click, give that a tug to make sure it's secure. Now while we bring this up, you're going to want to pay attention to the hole that's where the door lock knob should go. When we bring this in, we're going to put the entire panel up nice and high and put it over the door lock knob. Now as we bring this up, you're also going to want to pay attention to this area here on the door panel. We're going to have to look inside here and grab our inside door handle. Now this part can be a little bit tricky because we have to pull on the handle and pull it through the door panel at the same time. There isn't very much room in this area, but it can be done. With that through there, we'll continue on to putting the door panel in the proper positioning while sliding it towards the door. When it's properly positioned, it should press right up against the door flush, and then you can drive it down to lock it in position. Now we're on to reinstalling the trim panel. This part can be a little bit difficult because the area that you need to reach into is very small. To do this, you can either use a pick, small screwdriver, or just your fingers, whatever works best for you. We're going to grab onto this and pull it towards the outside of the door panel. Now once you have that on the outside, line it up properly and lock it in position. You want to start with this area along the back here because you can see it has a small hook. That needs to go behind the door panel and then roll the front into place as well. Listen for a click, make sure it's secure. Now we can reinstall our mounting bolts for our upper handle. Start these in, bottom them out. Continue on with your end covers. Okay friends, we fully installed our door actuator in the vehicle. We tested the functionality before we installed the door panel, so we're sure it functions properly. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.